inclusive education. Barriers and solutions. For many years, students with disabilities were educated in separate settings or even separate schools. Today, students with disabilities are required by law to be in the least restrictive environment to the maximum extent appropriate during the school day, according to the Education for All Handicapped Children Act of 1975, which is Public Law 94-142, and the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act of 2004, IDEA. School systems have rushed to place most students with disabilities in regular education classes for at least 80% of their school day, while advocates for inclusion argue that the higher standards that usually exist in the regular classroom setting will enhance the academic achievement of students with disabilities. Unfortunately, there are barriers that exist for inclusive education. Attitudes. Prejudices against those that are different can lead to discrimination, which inhibits the educational process. Curriculum. A rigid curriculum that does not allow the use of different teaching strategies can be an enormous barrier to inclusion. Teachers who are not trained, who are unwilling, or are unrealistic about working with students who have disabilities are a barrier. Lastly, funding. Adequate funding is necessary for successful inclusion, but sadly is rare. Schools often lack adequate facilities, qualified appropriate trained teachers, educational materials, and general support for inclusion classrooms. Before we jump to conclusions about whether inclusion is right or wrong, let's make sure that we are actually providing inclusive education. Solutions are ways to remove some of the barriers. Teachers in inclusive classrooms must incorporate a variety of teaching methods in order to best reach students of varying learning abilities. This has benefits even for those who would be placed in traditional classrooms. Early release days, allocated professional development days to help support and train teachers in best practices, especially those inclusion teachers. Common planning for each grade level and special education teachers. Consider block scheduling to allow inclusion teachers time to plan together. Create a book room or a leveled library. Access to all. Or materials shared across grade levels so that the materials and resources can be shared. Create an inclusive practice support team to encourage inclusion throughout the school. Improve attitudes. Advance the practice of universal design for learning to provide multiple modes of access and representation for all students. A classroom that is over half filled with students with disabilities only has a trained special educator part of the class period and is lacking differentiated materials and curriculum. This is not an inclusive classroom. An inclusion class is a classroom with a regular educator and a special educator creating a community of learning that helps all students to meet their academic and behavior